On a distant planet far from Earth, the Galactic Empire ruled with a harsh grip. Their power was absolute, and fear was a common feeling among the inhabitants. This empire was known for its cruelty, often using brutal tactics to maintain control. They believed that strength was the only way to rule, and mercy was a weakness. People whispered tales of their tyranny, but few dared to speak out. Among these oppressed, there was a glimmer of hope, a hope that would soon be crushed. In a small settlement on the planet, a human child named Alex lived with his family. He was just 10 years old, full of curiosity and innocence. Alex loved exploring the world around him. Every day he would play in the fields, climb trees, and dream of adventures beyond the stars. His laughter echoed through the settlement, bringing joy to those who knew him. But in the shadow of the Galactic Empire, happiness was a fragile thing. One day, news spread like wildfire throughout the settlement. The Empire had decided to make an example of someone. They would execute a human child to remind everyone of their power. The townspeople were terrified, but no one could stop the Empire's decision. They chose Alex, the innocent boy who had brought so much joy to their lives. The thought of losing him filled the community with sorrow and rage. The day of the execution arrived. The Empire had set up a stage in the center of the settlement, surrounded by soldiers clad in dark armor. They stood like looming shadows ready to enforce their will. As the townspeople gathered, fear gripped their hearts. They knew what was about to happen, yet no one dared to protest. They felt helpless against the overwhelming force of the Empire. When Alex was brought to the stage, he looked around in confusion. He couldn't understand why everyone was so quiet, why their faces were filled with tears. The soldiers shouted orders, and the crowd remained still, paralyzed by fear. Alex's mother, standing at the edge of the crowd, was unable to hold back her tears. She knew this was not just the loss of her son, but a dark day for humanity. Just as the Empire was about to carry out their cruel act, something unexpected happened. A loud explosion shattered the silence. The ground shook and dust flew into the air. The Empire's soldiers turned in alarm, their attention momentarily distracted. In that instant, the people saw a chance, a flicker of hope ignited within them. But it was not the townspeople who had caused the explosion. It was the general of the human forces, a man with a storied past and fierce determination. The general had been watching from the shadows. He remembered the super soldiers he had helped create, powerful warriors frozen in cryo sleep. They were humanity's last hope, waiting for a moment like this. As the chaos unfolded, he knew it was time to act. The memory of Alex and the countless lives lost to the Empire fueled his anger. This was not just about one child, it was about the future of humanity. As the soldiers began to regain their composure, the general signaled his team. The plan was set in motion. They had to awaken the super soldiers, for only they could stand against the might of the Galactic Empire. The general recalled their training, their unmatched skills, and the hope they represented. He had spent years preparing for this moment, and now it was finally here. Back at the stage, the Empire was in disarray. They had not anticipated such an act of defiance. The general used this distraction to his advantage. With swift precision, he ordered his team to execute their plan and rescue Alex. They moved like shadows, quietly and effectively cutting through the chaos. The cries of the townspeople echoed in the background, but the general's focus remained sharp. In this moment, the spark of rebellion was ignited. The brutal act of the Empire had not broken their spirit. Instead, it had awakened a force that had been lying dormant. The death of one innocent child would lead to the rise of many warriors. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake, and now humanity would respond with fury. This was just the beginning. As the general led his team into the fray, he could already envision the awakening of the super soldiers. The Empire would soon learn that they had underestimated humanity's strength. The fight for freedom was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the dust settled from the explosion, chaos erupted in the small settlement. The people of the town began to shout and move, their fear transforming into anger. The Galactic Empire's soldiers were disoriented, trying to regain control over the situation. In this moment of confusion, the general seized his chance. He had one mission now, to awaken the super soldiers from their long slumber. Kane, the fierce warrior, stepped forward. "I suggest we split into two teams. One can create a distraction at the front gates, while the other moves in from the back. This way, we can confuse the Empire and take them by surprise. Good idea, the general replied, nodding. We'll have to time it perfectly. Mia, you're the best shot among us. You can provide cover fire from the rooftops. Use your skills to keep their attention away from our main team. Mia, known for her sharp aim and quick reflexes, grinned at the challenge. I'm ready. They won't know what hit them. Next, Zara spoke up. What about their communications? If we can disrupt their signals, we can prevent them from calling for reinforcements. I can sneak into their communication tower while the teams create a distraction. Excellent, the general said, feeling proud of his team's quick thinking. You'll need to be quick and stealthy, but I trust you. We can't let them send out a warning. Jax, the strategist, leaned over the holographic map, pointing out the Empire's defenses. Their soldiers are well-trained and heavily armed, but they have weaknesses. The Western Gate is less guarded in the early morning hours. If we strike there, we can get through with fewer casualties. The general agreed, his mind working quickly. Let's finalize our plan. Team 1 will create a distraction at the Western Gate, drawing most of their attention. Team 2 will move in from the south, where the guards are fewer. Zara will go for the communications tower at the same time. We'll hit them hard and fast. As the team discussed the final details, excitement buzzed in the air. Each soldier felt a sense of purpose and determination. They were no longer just fighters, they were part of a greater mission to reclaim their freedom. The thought of avenging Alex and the countless others who suffered at the Empire's hands fueled their resolve. Once the plan was laid out, the general divided the soldiers into their respective teams. Remember, communication is key. Stay in contact and adapt as needed. We'll regroup at the rendezvous point after the attack. Let's make sure the Empire knows that we are not to be underestimated. The soldiers nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew the risks ahead, but they also understood the importance of their mission. Each of them had lost too much to the Empire, and they were willing to fight for a chance at a better future. As the sun began to rise higher in the sky, the soldiers suited up, checking their gear and weapons. The general felt a mix of pride and anxiety watching them prepare. He knew that this was only the beginning, and while the odds were against them, he had faith in their abilities. With a final check on their plans, the team set off in their designated directions. The general watched as they moved into the shadows, ready to unleash their fury upon the Empire. It was a moment of truth, a moment where they would either succeed or fail. As they approached the settlement, the sounds of the Empire's daily routine echoed in the background. The soldiers held their breath, knowing that soon they would face their enemies. They were no longer the frightened humans under the Empire's thumb. They were warriors, awakened and ready to fight for their freedom. In that moment, the general felt a surge of hope. They were united in purpose, driven by the desire for justice. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake, and now they would pay the price. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, and they were ready to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. The morning sun shone brightly, casting long shadows over the landscape as the soldiers moved into their positions. A tense silence hung in the air, broken only by the soft rustling of leaves and the distant sounds of the Galactic Empire's base. The general felt his heart racing as he waited for the signal to attack. This was the moment they had been training for, a chance to strike back at the Empire. In the distance, Kane and Mia took their positions at the Western Gate. Kane crouched behind a pile of crates, his eyes focused on the guards. Mia climbed onto a nearby rooftop, her sniper rifle ready. "Are you in position?" Kane whispered into his communicator. "Affirmative," Mia replied, her voice steady. "I can see everything. Just give me the word." Meanwhile, Zara had slipped away toward the Empire's communication tower. Her heart raced with excitement and fear. She knew this was a crucial part of the plan. If she could disable their communications, it would be much harder for them to call for help. As she crept through the shadows, she felt a surge of determination. She was ready to prove herself. The general stood near the rendezvous point, anxiously monitoring the situation. He glanced at his watch. It was time. "Kane, it's now or never." "Begin the distraction," he ordered. Kane nodded, taking a deep breath. He stood up and shouted, "Hey, over here!" He threw a rock at the guards to get their attention. The guards turned, their faces filled with confusion and surprise. Mia wasted no time. She pulled the trigger, and the shot rang out. One of the guards fell, clutching his chest. Panic spread among the Empire's soldiers. "What was that?" One of them shouted, looking around frantically. "Move! Find out what's going on!" Another guard yelled, rushing toward the noise. The distraction had worked. The soldiers were focused on the western gate, leaving the back entrance vulnerable. Meanwhile, Zara had reached the communication tower. She quickly climbed the stairs, her heart pounding. She knew she had to act fast. When she reached the control room, she found the communication console. "This will be easy," she muttered to herself. She began to hack into the system, her fingers flying over the buttons. Back at the western gate, the chaos continued. Kane and Mia took advantage of the confusion, moving swiftly to eliminate any remaining guards. They fought side by side, their movements synchronized. Each strike was precise, and the Empire soldiers began to realize they were outmatched. The general and his team moved in from the south, catching the Empire off guard. They burst through the gates, guns blazing. "For humanity!" the general shouted, rallying his soldiers. The battle cry echoed through the air, igniting the spirits of his team. As they fought their way through the enemy ranks, the general felt a rush of adrenaline. This was their moment to reclaim their dignity and avenge the innocent lives lost. He led the charge, pushing forward with unwavering determination. Zara, still in the communication tower, worked quickly to disable their systems. Come on, she urged, her hands shaking slightly. Just as she finished, an alarm blared, and red lights flashed throughout the tower. "I did it!" she cheered. But she knew she had to get out fast. The Empire would soon realize they had lost contact with their forces. Outside, the battle raged on. The soldiers fought bravely, but the Empire was not without its defenses. Reinforcements were arriving, and the general could see more enemy soldiers pouring into the area. "We need to regroup," he shouted, signaling to his team. Kane and Mia fought their way back to the general's side. "What's the plan?" Kane asked, breathing heavily. "We need to hold this position until Zara gets back," the general replied, scanning the area. "We can't let them flank us." Mia took a deep breath, steadying her aim. "I'll cover you from above. Just tell me where to shoot." With their positions set, the team held their ground, taking down enemy soldiers one by one. The battle was fierce, and the general felt the weight of their fight heavy on his shoulders. They were outnumbered, but the fire of determination burned bright in their hearts. Just when things began to look grim, Zara emerged from the communication tower, her face flushed with excitement. "I disabled their communications. They can't call for backup," she shouted. The general's heart soared. "That's it! Now we push forward," he commanded, and with renewed strength they surged into the enemy ranks. Together, they fought with everything they had, each soldier driven by the memory of the innocent child whose death had sparked their rebellion. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity's will to fight back, and now they would feel the full force of the awakened super soldiers. With every clash of weapons and every fallen enemy, the general knew they were not just fighting for revenge, they were fighting for a future where children could grow up free from fear. And with each moment, victory felt closer than ever. The battle raged on as the sun climbed high in the sky, casting a harsh light on the chaos below. The Galactic Empire's forces, now realizing they were under attack, were scrambling to regroup. But the awakened super soldiers were ready, fueled by anger and the desire for revenge. The general led his team with unwavering resolve, determined to finish what they had started. "Hold the line!" the general shouted, rallying his troops. He could see the Empire's reinforcements pouring in from the east, their armored vehicles rumbling toward the front line. The soldiers around him tightened their grips on their weapons, their faces set with determination. Kane and Mia fought side by side, taking down enemy soldiers with a deadly efficiency. "We can't let them push us back!" Kane yelled, ducking behind a wall for cover. "We have to hold this position." Mia nodded, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "I'll keep sniping them from up here," she replied, raising her rifle. "Just give me the word and I'll take out their heavy hitters." As the Empire's vehicles rolled closer, the general realized they needed a new plan. "Zara!" he called out, knowing she was still near the communication tower. "Can you hack into their systems and create a distraction?" Zara, still catching her breath from the earlier fight, nodded. "I can try. I'll disrupt their weapon systems. It will buy us some time." She dashed toward the communication tower, determined to execute her plan. The general turned back to the battlefield, watching as the Empire's forces set up heavy artillery. "We need to move now," he shouted. Follow me! With a battle cry, the super soldiers charged forward, using the cover of nearby structures to advance. The sound of gunfire echoed all around them, but their spirits were unbroken. They had come too far to turn back now. Zara reached the control panel of the communication tower and quickly began to type. Her fingers moved rapidly over the keys as she hacked into the enemy systems. Come on, she urged, feeling the pressure of time. Suddenly, alarms began to blare, and the screens in front of her flickered. Got it! I've overridden their systems! Just then, the Empire's artillery began to malfunction. Explosions erupted as their own weapons turned against them. Now's our chance! The general yelled, leading his team into the fray. The soldiers took advantage of the chaos, moving in swiftly and taking down the distracted enemies. With each step, they pushed deeper into the heart of the Empire's base. They could feel the tide turning in their favor. As they neared the command center, the general spotted the Empire's leader, a tall, imposing figure clad in dark armor. The leader was barking orders, trying to regain control of the situation. The general felt a surge of anger at the sight. This was the one who had caused so much pain. Let's finish this, he shouted to his team. For the fallen! Kane and Mia followed him, determined to confront the enemy leader. They fought their way through the remaining soldiers, their skills honed from countless battles. Each shot was precise, each movement calculated. They would not let this opportunity slip away. When they reached the command center, the general burst through the door. The Empire's leader turned, his eyes widening with surprise. You? How did you get here? He spat, drawing his weapon. Your reign of terror ends now, the general declared, his voice strong. You took innocent lives, but we will not stand for it any longer. The leader laughed, a cold, cruel sound. You think you can defeat me? You are nothing but a group of misguided soldiers. With that, the two charged at each other, weapons clashing in a fierce battle. The air was thick with tension as they exchanged blows, each one pushing harder than the last. The general felt every ounce of his training and determination surge through him. He had to win this fight. Kane and Mia joined in, flanking the Empire's leader. They worked together, using their combined strength to push him back. The leader was strong, but the three of them fought with the fury of their fallen comrades in their hearts. Finally, with one swift move, the general disarmed the leader, sending his weapon clattering to the ground. It's over, he said, breathing heavily. You've lost. The leader, now realizing he was outnumbered and outmatched, glared defiantly. You may have won today, but the Empire will return. Not if we have anything to say about it, Kane shot back, his voice firm. With a final look of defeat, the Empire's leader was captured. The remaining soldiers began to surrender, realizing they were no match for the united front of the awakened super soldiers. Cheers erupted from the soldiers as they celebrated their hard-fought victory. As the dust settled, the general looked around at his team. They were battered but victorious. They had avenged the innocent and reclaimed their dignity. It was a new beginning for humanity, one where they would no longer be pushed around by the Galactic Empire. Together, they stood tall, ready to face whatever came next. The battle was won, but the war for freedom was far from over. United, they would fight for their future and ensure that no one would ever have to suffer as they had again.